what is the sustainability elements of modeling and simulation? It's really about saving resources in many dimensions. So it can be in design and in the early phase that you save on prototypes.
Welcome to a brand new episode of our podcast, Human and AI, Mind Machines and the Gradient Descent.
Thanks for tuning in again to listen and geek out with us over the fascinating field of AI, machine learning, and the role of humans in it. Today, we're super happy to have Mathias Oppelt with us. Mathias is the head of the Siemens Simulation Center. He strives to unlock the potential of people, organizations, and portfolios, and is passionate about software technology with a transformational power for the planet and people. I guess that already sounds super exciting, so let's lose no more time and dive directly into this episode.
Mathias, welcome to the show, and thanks so much for taking time. So, let's kick off with an easy one, right? And let's refer to Nick Bostrom's actually aspect. What's your view on the simulation hypothesis and our nature of existence? Is the universe an artificial simulation?
Thank you so much for having me on the show, first of all. And Uli, is that really an easy one to answer? I'm not so sure about. So if it would be a simulation, it would be at least a good one, I would say, because you wouldn't really notice. You could also go really far on that question into quantum theory and so on and say, okay, what is really the mastermind of the universe? Is there any, in my personal belief, I hold it more also with Einstein, like there are certain things which we are currently not able to answer or to to have a solution for it immediately with our rational thinking as of today.
So that means, it could be. Is that depends? That's like the consulting speech, right?
I said, if it is an easy one. Maybe in a quotation I recently read about, there was a girl, or you can imagine, Uli, if you're asleep and you have a dream, it feels really real. Yeah. But if you wake up, you notice it was just a dream.
All right.
And that analogy was taken up. If you're now awakening in that sense, would you wake up from that dream on Earth? So I don't have an answer to that at the moment.
That's a good one.
What a cool perspective on it. And Mathias, you're right, that was not an easy question, but I will continue with an easier one, I hope, at least, because we want to get to know you better, because you are our genius mind today. So you've worked and lived in very different places across Germany and the US. And prior to your work at Siemens, you've been working for Audi, for a small startup. You worked as a consultant for Jung Heinrich and the Lufthansa Technik. So you've seen a lot. And I'm curious to know, what were the most shaping or amazing moments that you maybe even today often think back and that you would like to share here with the audience?
I have to admit, I think the most priming moments in my life have been started way earlier. So I would have to start with things which I've not written in my CV, and this is actually how I grew up. And I have to say, I grew up next to a farm, and since a little boy, I was spending basically all my days on the farm, working with the cows. So I was milking the cows, I was driving around with tractors, I was working, and it didn't even feel like work. So for me, I was always say, I go to play on the farm next door, but I was actually, I was working. And this really, I have to admit, if I reflect on that, it's a very, very priming time for me, because I have learned so many things for life, I can say. It's starting with working with your both hands, seeing what you have done. You have to work in a team. it a farm, to manage a team. You cannot do it alone. You have to be agile, what we call it today, because if you are harvesting your corn or whatever, and there's a rain shower popping up, you better have to hurry up. And you have to adapt, being flexible, being agile. So this is what really was priming me in the very essence from the early on. And if I would summarize it, I would even say, okay, my analogy to work actually was so much driven out of it that I would say the ideal work today would be considered as playing for adults. So if you feel that it's basically like a play, then it's really you're in the flow and you're having a lot of fun and can really make a difference. And another aspect what's primed me was also that I'm having that long-term trust and also driving things in a sustainable manner. So because if you put your seeds into the ground in the beginning of the year, you have to have the trust that you can harvest certain things at the end of the year. So I'm driving things with a long-term perspective out of a deep inner trust basis, and this is where it comes from. And you asked me about Siemens and Audi and all these companies I have worked for. What at the end really is the essence and what primed me. It's also I could connect it a lot of times to individual people. So it's the empowerment I have engaged and I was lucky to receive when I was first time in the US, and I was couple of weeks working when my boss came and said, okay, I just sold a consulting to a customer. I said, okay, I've never done it, but sounds like fun. So this is like also receiving trust from people and then growing with that. And this is basically in all the companies, it's about people. So yes, you have to have passionate and passionate people. You have to have great portfolios which you can identify with. But at the end, business and also connecting to the first question with all the simulation we see in the world, business is made between people at the end.
Wow, what a beautiful answer and very multifaceted. So very many different perspectives that you just outlined here. So we're all still facing the pandemic and there's the rise of Delta. And so maybe this situation also showed a lot how important it is to be resilient and to self-reflect. And so what is your connection to mindfulness, Mathias? And we even heard that you did a training to become a mindfulness coach. Is that right? And what was your main motivation to do that and your biggest learning?
So I'm doing a training to become a mindfulness meditation teacher and certify myself. The motivation behind that was I'm meditating now for myself and with a couple of retreats for I think almost a decade, and I noticed basically how it influenced also my life. And I said one time, okay, if you really want to master certain things, you need to teach it. And then I stumbled over a course program, which very well resonated with me. And I said, okay, I should sign up for that and just do it for having the fun and really mastering. So I'm not sure if I ever will give formal meditation courses or classes. But I just wanted to experience it, and I get in touch with so many great people from many different areas around the globe, because it's also done virtually, that training. So that's very inspiring for me to get to know all these different people you typically don't deal with in a day-to-day Siemens life, I would say. So that's a biggest advantage out of it. Yeah.
And does the meditation or your mindfulness practices also turn out to be applicable in your professional life?
Indeed. So when I first started meditation and mindfulness, I I don't start it directly with mindfulness and with meditation. I started more through yoga, and transitioned into that more mindfulness meditation trajectory. So I notice a certain calmness throughout the day when I regularly practice, and that could be just a few minutes each day. So to really focus and to just notice your breath and how your mind wanders and all these things which come up if you really try to tune in and be mindful at the moment. So I noticed that difference, how I could walk through the day when I have my daily practices. And since I noticed that it was something I was basically, so we could call it on the hook. So I didn't lose. I started to intensify it a little bit, went on silent retreats, and I learned a lot about myself. Also, it helps a lot the reflection. So you mentioned in the beginning what drives me, this purpose statement to unlock the potential of people, organizations, and technological portfolios. This is also what I discovered basically when I was starting some intensive self-reflection also at the beginning actually of Corona, because we all were forced to slow down and not to travel anymore. We couldn't run away, so we need to be with ourselves. So I just used that as an as an trigger to learn more about myself. And mindfulness meditation was definitely a very helpful tool for me. And I'm going to apply it every day, and that's pretty cool.
So you worked out your own purpose statement, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. I was doing a lot of reflection, what really drives me, and also what primed me, what are my strengths. And this is basically what it ended up with, that I could write down one sentence, which really is, so to say, my inner source of energy, where I really can develop a lot of passion. If these ingredients come together, I can do a really good job, so to say.
That's pretty dope. It's another easy thing, actually, right? Coming up with one statement which triggers somehow where where you can pull out energy and identify yourself, and they're like, okay, this is the reason why, right? It's super important, super rewarding, I guess, but it's not an easy thing to come up with that. Have you done it by yourself, or is that something which you were guided through the process?
It was not a guided process, so it's also, I left a little bit space for just creativity, so to say. It was a mixture of many different things. So mindfulness meditation, trainings I have done on personality, coaching sessions I was lucky to get, formal things like Strength Scope or Strengths Finder, these tools to use it, personality checking tools. I think these 17 or 13 personalities things where it's some reflection, help to reflect formally. And for me, at the end, it was really when I was on retreat and was discovering that sentence and also using some formal methods, but I put it all together, and then it was not an easy one, but there was a moment when it appeared to me.
Let's talk about technology, Mathias. So, you're in the simulation space, aren't you? Right? So, simulation portfolio, Simit, and stuff like that, right? Can you share a bit of that the audience also outside gets a bit of a glimpse? What does it mean? What are these typical use cases? You're thriving for, or maybe that fascinates you in this space.
Sure. So simulation is really a broad topic, so we could talk that for the next hours. But to condense it, basically, what we do with the Simit simulation portfolio, we are simulating what is being automated by all the control systems which Siemens is providing to our customers, and we built in Simit, you could imagine that as easy as you would build a virtual plant, a virtual factory, a virtual machine, which you could hook up to your real control system and then validate, test your control system. You could use it to train your operators, machine operators, plant operators in interaction with the control system and the virtual machine and plant. And the best case is you cannot destroy anything. So you have best trained operators also in hazardous situations. You have a well validated control system because you could do the full software FAT based on a virtual, realistically behaving plant. So that's really the benefits we drive and we unlock with the Simit portfolio. And this stands for sure in a way broader context of the overall Siemens simulation portfolio, where there is really sophisticated chemical process simulation tools like GPROMs, where we have mechanical design, mechatronical design and simulation tools, robot simulation, cell simulation, factory floor simulation, material flow simulation. So it's a context of all. So you cannot capture the whole real world in just a single simulation tool or a single digital twin. So it's really you're having these purpose-oriented simulation tools. And as mentioned, Simit has its purpose to have build up virtual plants for testing and training purposes along the life cycle of engineering and operations.
All right. And what is the connection then to the field of AI or the machine learning, right? Or let's say, you have these two sides, right? It's somehow complementing each other. On the one side, you do the physical based simulation approaches, once maybe if no data is there, right? But on the other side, both have some commonalities in terms of, predicting behaviors of these complex, maybe adaptive system, right? What relevance does ML have actually? Are there any AI cases you're driving or within maybe the larger org?
Yeah, so machine learning, you're right. There's a commonality between, I would say, physical or based on mathematical equations, derived simulation model and a simulation model, which at the end is also mathematical equations, but it's derived from machine learning and there's maybe neural network. So one comes from data, one comes from textbooks, so to say. But at the end, it's a model which try to predict the behavior of a real world thing. So there's similarity or commonality. What I often experience, if you want to apply machine learning, you need to have very rich data. So you could have a lot of data from a process plant, for example. And this ranges for years or over years of operations. But if the plant was working fine, the most of the time it was working in steady state. So the variety of data, it's very low. So you could just predict basically the normal state of operations. But a model unlocks the full potential if you could predict the unplanned behavior, so to say, what happened and you couldn't foresee. So therefore, in the ideal world, you could combine it. Why would you combine it? Because also machine learning has advantages where you actually are not able to write down an equation, what is happening currently in your reactor or whatever. So if you don't know it, how these processes actually could be written down in the equation, you cannot come up with a physics-based model. But you could collect a lot of data and derive a model from that, and then you combine basically the best of both worlds. That's the target, and I think the future of ML and simulation being combined, and it opens up new trajectories.
Yeah, somehow also with regards to the concept of, I guess, software 2.0, I think that's somehow I see simulation as software 1.0, to be honest, right? It's Karpathy, right? He's leading in Tesla, the computer vision stuff. But he comes with the notions like software 1.0 is like you write the source code, right? So basically you define the physical, the model basically. And then you feed data in there, right, or stimulate and adopt or make some changes on the model side, which is the traditional software development path. On the other side, he's referring to machine learning methodologies, a software 2.0 paradigm, which says like actually it's the data who's writing the source code. Right, so you don't. You have a bit of the input-output, obviously, definition or the optimization gradients, but actually the entire source code has been written through the data that you feed in, and that's why his rationale is that IDEs and software development need to be also adapt to the software 2.0 paradigm, like working with data basically, right?
I think that's an interesting idea, and it's maybe not so easy to imagine how software basically writes itself. I know there are certain algorithms to do it, and there will be much more assistance from my perspective in future, also driven from an AI perspective. So everything which is some kind of a routine job, and you could very well describe it, what should happen when, and so on, could be automated. And will be automated in a certain point of time, because it's not using the full human potential as creativity. So the one aspect I'm struggling with, I was just thinking about, is if it's all based on data, and based on the data from the past, we try to predict the future. Wouldn't the future not just look like the past? And how do we bring in these creativity our human minds could bring in to not just only predict the future out of the past, but really bringing these new twists in? And I think that's the ideal combination of having these data-driven aspects. But so I would potentially always see in software 2.0 and 4.0 or whatever, humans adding their creative minds into the models and the software of the future.
But maybe it's hard, it's even having exploiting some kind of boundaries of a technical system maybe easier for a software system than a human system, isn't it? Right? But at least coming up with new flavors to it might maybe be interesting.
But then it's a well-described optimization problem. In certain boundaries, finds the optimal solution. Sure, an optimizer can do that better, because that's a multivariable optimization problem. Human minds are not designed to solve that. But we getting ideas in, we are setting the boundaries, and then the algorithm will do the job.
So in reverse, what's your view? Where do you envision that machine learning can add to build better simulations?
As I would say I would expect a certain change, that it's more going into the hybrid world of combining machine learning, data-driven models with physics-based models. So combining the best out of the two worlds. That's the scenario I would envision, how the next step of simulation will look like.
So Mathias, also simulation and especially the connection to digital twins seems to be a quite pervasive technology and is applicable in very different scenarios. But what are use cases that are like currently just emerging, or that will become more and more crucial for the future? And what is a digital twin to you? And what are the biggest challenges that make partners and clients pick up the concept for the industrial operations?
That's a lot of questions, isn't it? In one thing.
That was a lot.
Yeah, it's not just one. So let's see where to start. What's a digital twin? A digital twin for me is a virtual replica of a real world asset.
Mhm.
So, and it's and there's also not just one digital twin from my perspective. There are many digital twins. And it's not just data, it's also simulation models and so on. So it's really, there are many twins related to a certain asset. You can put them all together and then have a maybe more enriched digital twin, or at least you store all the twins associated to the asset in a central location. But as mentioned, it's a virtual replica of a physical asset. What use cases out of this digital twin would emerge for me? It's all about assistance. Operator assistance, designer assistance, engineering assistance. So helping to answer questions they have to find the optimal design, to find the optimal operational strategy, to find the optimal solution, how to react if there's some disruptions in the value chain and supply chain happening. How do I need to adapt? Can I add this order to my production? What would be the impact? What would be the influence? How much longer can I run my furnace, for example, and I have to do a cleaning cycle? All these questions, which you would have throughout design, engineering, and operations, their digital twins would become and evolve into an assistance system that you could ask them questions, you could interact with them. And if there's actually the way where you could interact with them very naturally, and they also have to a certain thing, their own thinking and anticipation, what would be relevant in such context and situation, and help you to also find the right solution as easy as possible. I think that would be certainly the next big step. And to your last question about the challenges to adopt such technologies, at the bottom line, it's about trust. So the humans being assisted by that technology, they need to trust the system, and there needs to be deep trust. And this is probably the biggest challenge, because these technology becomes so complex, but you need to explain what is actually happening and how it's working, that you could foster this trust. And it's also, trust needs to be built, so you need to work with the system, and it needs to prove quite good quality in answering certain things, that it's continue to be used, and then it starts to improve itself, so it's becoming better and better. But it's really about the trust. And in terms of scalability, to make the technology as easy as possible to digest by operators and non-simulation machine learning experts. For sure, we need experts in that technology who come up with that solution, with that assistance systems in the first place, who can deploy it then on a larger scale. So it's also a certain challenge about finding the right personnel and the right people to deal with such technology. And also maintain it, keep it on board. So when I was just another small story, when I was traveling and talking to a lot of customers about advanced process control, which I was told at university it's heavily used in process industries and so on. And then I was going into the industry and saying, okay, and I always had this question, where are all your advanced process control systems? So, and the answer, which I didn't got just once, I got it multiple times. Yeah, we had a system. It's somewhere down there in the corner. We switched it off because there was some PhD student working it, and he left the company. And then a couple of months later, nobody was really understanding what the system does. So we shut it down, and we are back on manual operations. So I said, okay, that's your advanced control. So I boiled it down to say advanced control in industry, it's a tuned PID loop. So there's a lot of room for higher control systems and assistance systems which you deeply trust and operated on long time.
I think that's an interesting thing. So, and I think this is also parallels to the machine learning community, right? Which heavily gained from what I would say the open source movement and the open source momentum, right? Not only because of data accessibility, right, which was spin out, ImageNet, and so on, but also a long line of the source code and frameworks are being shared by, also by corporates, right? We have, I don't know, PyTorch, Keras, TensorFlow, and these kinds of aspects. So this open source that you shape the community around development and contributing new advances on ArchiveX on a paper level, describing for what and how, and also sharing the code right along with the frameworks and advancing that had a significantly acceleration on the progress of on the machine learning progress. And so it's not a single person, right? The working student here, he tested it out and he's the only one acknowledged about, but somehow it felt this democratization to a super geeky topic, right? Do you see a similar trend in the optimization simulation space? What's the role of software developing, sharing, or benchmarking data, right? Models? Is there a space in the community?
At least in my vision, there's definitely a space for such community and for much bigger sharing rate. So because you develop your simulation models and you could share them, and if there would be easy mechanisms to either share them open source, you should be able to do it much easier than today. And the next aspect is, maybe you want to share that model, but you don't want to disclose all the IP, which is within the model, but you don't want to have bring others into situations that they can use the model. So this is also something where we need to be able to share models which are more know-how protected regarding the asset which is being simulated. But I certainly see a rising demand in models to be shared. And if I just look at Siemens, so how fabulous would it be if all our drives and actuators, sensors, motors, what we all sell, they would be accompanied by a digital twin. And a digital twin, not just a drawing or things like that, a real digital twin you could actually interact with. You could integrate in your simulation model of your overall machine or your overall plant, and use these expertise of the component manufacturer or the module supplier or the machine supplier, because these are the ones who know that system and that asset as best as possible. So that should be the ones who create the digital twin and deliver it, accompanying the real twin, or even as all twins have a birth order, I would always say the digital twin is born first. So the digital twin goes first to the machine builder. He would develop the machine concept, size the right motors, and so on. That would be unlocking a completely new way of digital engineering and simulation-based or model-based engineering. So definitely yes, in terms of sharing, also applying philosophies from software development, and how you share, how you version your models, how you distribute it. Definitely, that is a trend I would like also to I would actually see, and I would expect it to pick up in future.
That was an exciting vision. Mathias, you like in your purpose statement, you also say like you want to create value for the planet and the people, or you're passionate about that. And since the challenges of our present time are very severe and very present also, as the recent stormwater events have shown, or also the pandemic is showing us every day, how do we at Siemens really contribute to creating technology with purpose, so saving resources through simulation and modeling? Do you have some examples?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I just recently had to give a speech at the Oppelt, and I was thinking about what would be the best content for my storyline, and we were coming up and basically with what is the sustainability elements of modeling and simulation. So how do we contribute exactly to your question? And so I could repeat that now for the next 15 minutes, or summarize it and make a little appetite to watch that maybe. It's really about saving resources in many dimensions. So it can be in design and in the early phase that you save on prototypes. So in a machine building, you save on metals, but also a very crucial resource and our hardest currency in the world is time. So if you can save on time and avoid wasting time by having questions answered earlier, and you took the risks away by simulating and modeling it, I think it's a well contribution. So the other thing, so I said saving resources in terms of energy, in terms of material, also increasing the efficiency in operations with the models. So you could again save energy, you can save on raw materials. So if you just be able to produce in your plant 2% more out of the same input, you would have certainly gained efficiency and have done something for the environment. So it's basically saving time and resources with the element of simulation, just getting it first right with a virtual model at your hand.
Awesome. So when will it be displayed? So the folks out there will be seeing the talk on YouTube, I guess. Then, or
it's on YouTube already. Yeah.
So Mathias, we are coming actually almost to the end, but before that, obviously, you have been in the corporate space for quite some while, right? And you saw and are exposed to quite some talents and entrepreneurs and programs, right? What has changed actually, in the last years, in maybe on your leadership style over the last year? And maybe are there some lessons, learned that you want to give also to young talents who, want to make it different in large corporations? How to survive? Is there 101 on doing that and not leaving that, but joining and trying to innovate?
So I had to laugh, and it's not really a survival guide because it's not too bad, Uli. So you can do great things within large corporations. So what has changed in my leadership style? So over the last years, I would say I just gained much more confidence. So it's really a lot linked to experience. So the confidence level, what do I mean by that? It's basically these inner trust in me, which I'm connected to, that I would just be confident and also going into situations which are maybe where there's uncertainty, how to deal with the uncertainty, so that I'm confident I will find a solution. So there will be a solution. So if it's the best one, I don't know, but I'm confident a solution will show up if it's time for them. So that's giving me a lot of calmness and security throughout the day and throughout also the leadership, and that things will show up when the time is right. And this is also, therefore, I can manage the teams and so on, also with this calmness and also with that long-term vision I'm always putting in the centerpiece of my management style, and the same is with trust. So I'm putting a lot of trust and empowerment also on my employees and talents and entrepreneurs. And maybe the greatest lessons, I would say, also in large corporations, or especially, everything is possible. So if you want to do it, you could do it. Not stop by people saying we have always done it like this and that will never work and we have tried it 10 years before. Yeah, just do it, and it is possible. You should always try to find the right ecosystem. And what do I mean with that? It's also the surrounding. So that it comes back to the first question you raised to me, and what is so essential of business? It's the people. So you should also look at what people you want to work with, and are the people good for you to help you to develop yourself and to help and reflect, to grow. Is it an open-minded surrounding if you're looking for that? So also look at the people in terms of the ecosystem and if it's the right place for you to grow. And last but not least, I would say just be yourself. That's so important, and we have many people who would like to be likes. Just be yourself. Bring in your diversity into the world, and then you're also having more fun and more confidence basically in your life, and you will be able to grow much faster if you are yourself and you're not trying to be someone else.
Wow, Matthias, that's so inspiring. And it was super awesome to talk to you and to get to know you better, your personal side, but also all the technical insights. So thanks so much for that. But before we finish off this episode, we want to play our favorite game. It's Authentic Autocomplete. So for the closing, I will give you a couple of sentence starters and you will just finish. Matthias, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Awesome. So Siemens is...
Great.
That was the shortest answer we ever get from that.
To the point.
Good point, right?
Simulation is...
the enabler of a more sustainable future.
Beautiful. Technology with purpose is...
necessary to transform the world.
Amazing. And last but not least, if I could invent a rule for everyone in the world to follow, it would be...
probably also the shortest rule, I would say, just be.
Oh, nice. Love it how you downsize, complexity. We always start with tricky question at the beginning, at the end, right? You do make it very easy, actually sounding very easy for you. Matthias, thanks so much for your time and for a bit of a sharing, letting us in a bit on what's your passion, what's your purpose, and actually also what's your view on the simulation and the role of machine learning in that. So super nice, super interesting. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for having me on the show, and it was really a pleasure to share with you and the audience what's in my head and my thoughts.
And folks out there, stay tuned. There's a lot more to come. Stay #bold, #committed, #Tourette open-minded. And we hear us definitely at the next Siemens AI Lab podcast. Cheers.